Okay. What's going on, everybody? My name is Mangg. Welcome back to Hanging with Mangg, episode 494. So we're playing a little Cataclysm here. Because why wouldn't we? Yeah, I mean, Dragon's Dogma 2 came out, and we did a stream of it this week. And I have not played it since. Because I've just been playing Cataclysm. Which probably not many people would say. But here we are. Here we are indeed. Yeah, I don't know, it's just... There's nothing like it. Nothing like Cataclysm. So bouncing from Magic Realm to Cataclysm, Dark Days Ahead. It's something. Sure is something. Yeah. So anyways. This week on this channel, we have some more Gloomhaven, of course. That is just about done. I think there's 2 or 3 more videos for that, and it'll be done. And then Astalon, I think there's 1 more part, and then that'll be done. And then, yeah, we will have Dragon's Dogma 2. That Let's Play is going to continue. I mean, I know I'm just playing Cataclysm now, but there'll be more videos for that. And, then, I don't know. Well, okay, I have Dragons Down. I recorded, I think, like 7 videos for that on TTS, so I could upload that. I did record a bunch of stuff for Magic Realm. I could upload that. I don't know if anyone's really interested. And then, beyond that, I don't know. RimWorld newest expansion is coming out apparently next month, so there's that. There's plenty of games that I can just always go back to, and we can read, look at some more stuff. Obviously, Archipelago. There's always more Archipelago stuff to do. There's more and more games being added for that, like every day. We could, of course, do more Factorio, as always. That's a fun game. I would like to get back to BattleTech at some point and actually play that with some of those big mods. That would be fun. What else? Just a lot of stuff. That's not even counting, like, new games that come out. There's always more Pathfinder. I think I was starting to record another playthrough of that with the Lich Mythic Path. So I could go back to that. There's other games that are like being added to Archipelago that I have not played and I'd like to become familiar with. If I just look here at the recent stuff, things like let's see here, Death's Door is apparently going to be added. Lunacid, I don't know exactly what that is. It's just some oddball stuff. Legend of Heroes Trails in the Sky the Third. I've tried to play the first Trails in the Sky game, like, quite a bit. But the story is just, like, so banal, you know? It's just so basic, and the characters all seem very basic. The combat is kind of cool, and the character customization is kind of cool, but there's just so much talking and dialogue. So I just... The most recent thing I remember was like going to this academy and then having to put on like a play for a bunch of orphans, and it's just like, oh my god. And the thing, the third game, which is what they're apparently adding to Archipelago, is looked down by some because it's more of just like a series of boss battles and stuff. Like, it's more focused on just like combat. So I'd probably like that one a lot more, so maybe I should check that out. Super Adventure Island 2. Final Fantasy IV Free Enterprise. Apparently that's regarded as like one of the best, or the best, Final Fantasy rando. So, could look at that before it goes to Archipelago. Dark Cloud 2. I remember renting Dark Cloud 2 when I was a little kid. Not a little kid, but a kid. And being very confused. I think I was kind of overwhelmed by it, but it seemed very interesting. It might be cool to actually play that as an adult. I don't know, there's a lot of stuff. It's obviously a lot of stuff. Yeah, so that's that. So we'll see. I mean, we'll see. No matter what, of course. Like I said, Dragon's Dogma 2 will continue. That game certainly has been getting some negative attention lately. It sounds like... I mean, I didn't really experience much of anything negative as far as what they're talking about. But I haven't played it much. But, complaints about microtransactions. There was complaints about how you can only have one save file. Which is pretty insane. In 2024 to have one save file, but okay. A lot of complaints about like not being able to adjust your character's appearance after creation. Just a lot of things that seem to kind of reaffirm what I said at the end of my stream of just like, it doesn't feel like a game designed for 2024, you know. There's also, of course, complaints about performance. I guess I can't say I'm too surprised. They made it 30 FPS on consoles for a reason. and the reason was not that it fits their cinematic vision or anything like that. Like, it was definitely, they could not get a steady 60 FPS out of the PS5. So I'm certainly not surprised that the PC version is also suffering. And that's not to say that the vision that they have of the game, the scope of the game and everything, the detail is just so immense that it just requires so much power to get it. You know, these things nowadays are always just like an optimization issue. Which is not to say that I think optimization is easy or anything. I have no idea what's involved in all that. But certainly, some games are more optimized than other games, so there must be some companies out there that are good at it. You look at, like, Doom Eternal, which looks pretty good. And you can get, like, I can get, like, 300 FPS on that game or something like that, you know? So, and obviously Doom Eternal is not quite at the same scope as something like Dragon's Dogma 2. But, yeah, I don't know. I mean, regardless, you've got people complaining. And the fact is that most likely they're going to be able to improve the performance of the game through patches, which means that had they just worked on it a bit more, they probably could have sorted this out beforehand and avoided a mostly negative score on Steam, which is pretty bad. But as long as people pre-order, it's kind of like, well, whatever. And I pre-ordered, I guess, sort of. I pre-ordered a day before, once all the reviews were out. And none of the reviews seemed to mention much performance issues. I don't know. I don't know. Anyways. Performance and microtransactions were not my complaint at all. My complaint was more, no lock-on, which is just a tough sell for me, I gotta say. But we'll keep it going. I mean, plenty of people are really enjoying it, so. Anywho, over on the Exploring series, I put out a video on, what was it? Reckoner, I think, was last week's video. So that did alright. And this week I worked on a video for 40K about Magnus the Red, who may or may not have done something wrong. I'm sure the comments on that video will tell me. Yeah, I mean, the videos on the Primarchs are always pretty interesting, I feel. In a lot of ways, I kind of, from like a narrative standpoint, I think I prefer the Horus Heresy era, the 30K era. it just seems, you know, I say at the start of the video, it's basically a Greek tragedy. And I think that's what appeals to me. All the Primarchs, their different personalities, philosophies, interacting with one another, betraying one another. And you got the big emperor at the top, just kind of all letting it happen. But it's just every time I make a 40K video, you just get reminded of kind of how immature the whole thing is. It's just it's just part of the setting. Like, they can't escape it. They cannot escape from the fact that there's a guy named Ferrus Manus, which means iron hands, and he has iron hands. They just can never get away from that, ever. And so even though you have all these authors, serious sci-fi authors and stuff like that, writing like pretty epically scoped novels, and you got the whole Horus Heresy series, and however many books they wrote just about the Siege of Terra itself, you know, things like that, there's still that fucker named Ferrus Manus. It's kind of like Star Wars in some ways. As far as, I feel like Star Wars suffers a lot as well. They've started to, you know, move past it somewhat. They're definitely making strides. But, like, the entire aesthetic and tech level of Star Wars was very firmly ingrained based on the fact that Star Wars was originally made in the 70s on a small budget. You know. And so the tech level of Star Wars is it's weird, you know, it's very old school. And no place was that more evident for me than when I actually tried playing the Star Wars tabletop RPG. And the Star Wars tabletop RPG kind of has to go into the topic of, like, computers and, like, hacking and stuff like that. And it's like, well, shit, you know, George Lucas certainly didn't plan any of this. How does this work? And it's just kind of a mess, and it doesn't make much sense. And it's like, you know, you don't really see a whole lot of... The only hacking you ever see in Star Wars is just, like, R2-D2 plugging himself in, and then he beeps and boops, and then doors open. And it's like, okay, can people do that? You know, does it have to be a little robot? Yeah, it was an experience. Anyways, I'm getting off topic. So, anyways, next week I'll be back to SCP to look at an entry for the 8,000 contest. 8,000, man. It's crazy. When I started SCP, when I started SCP, was 4,000 out at the time? That's a good question. Did I cover 4,000 when it came out? I want to say 4,000 was already out. I don't recall there being like a hubbub for me. About 4,000. Although it says here 4,000 came out in July of 2018. July 2018. I did my first video in August of 2018. Okay, so I had just missed the 4,000 contest. But still, that means I have now covered the 5,000 contest, the 6,000 contest, the 7,000 contest, and we'll be doing 8,000. Yeah. It's all fun and games, though, until SCP 10,000. That's going to be quite the milestone. It's really it's gonna fuck with me, like, having to say 10,131 as an SCP. That'll throw me off. Anywho, that's where that's at. Where's my car? So that's that. There will be 2 more 40K videos. Again, one on Fulgrim and one on the armaments of the Tau. And I'm not sure when or how to announce that it'll be stopping. Whether to just do it as, like, a post, a community post, or to actually make a video about it. I'm not inclined to make a video about it. So it'll probably just be a community post. And then people that don't see that, well, I'm sure I'll get comments at some point of like, oh, what happened to 40K? I'll get comments like that regardless of how I announce it. If I had a machine that could blast information into every person's brain on the planet, and I said very explicitly, the Exploring series is now stopping 40K, and there will be no more 40K videos, I'd still get messages at some point. Anyways, I wish there was some work done on Cataclysm to make loot just a little bit more sensible. Like, it just seems dumb that a store would sell... Okay, well, first of all, a farming supply store selling a cheerleader tank top, that's one thing. But selling a rifle, but not selling the magazine. It just doesn't make any sense. What was I talking about? Right, yeah, anyways. So... we didn't do solo role manging this week. because I did the Dragon's Dogma 2 stream instead. But I did do RPG night with my family, and I don't know, guys, it's getting pretty rough. It's getting pretty rough out there. It's not just that they're dumb. I mean, they are, but that's perfectly, you know, forgivable. It's that I just feel, I continue to feel, in many ways, that they would be, like, happier just playing a board game. Like playing Descent, or maybe even Gloomhaven. I mean, I know, obviously, for a fact, this is discussed many times on the internet and stuff. I know. Different people like Dungeons & Dragons and RPGs for different reasons. I like it because I enjoy problem solving. I really, you know, enjoy that aspect of the game. I enjoy being presented with ridiculously, you know, complex, impossible problems, and then finding a way to solve them using, you know, creative solutions. That's what I enjoy. I know that not everyone likes that same aspect of D&D, and there are plenty of people that the only way they want to solve a problem is by rushing in with their battle axe and getting into a big brawl. And that's just as acceptable. And there are people that, like, really get into, like, Critical Role, and they love that aspect of, like, the characters and dialogue and the story aspect and all that. And that doesn't really appeal to me whatsoever. But, again, perfectly valid. But if you're not really into problem solving, and you're not really into story and characters and dialogue, and you're only really interested in just doing, like, grid-based combat of I use my ability here and I smack this guy with my sword. Okay, I rolled 8 damage, haha. Or you get really excited during combat because you rolled a crit, did a big hit. And that's why you come every week to play D&D. At a certain point, I feel like you'd probably just like a board game. Maybe you wouldn't like the board game more, but very possibly you might like the board game just as much. And I say this not because I really want to play board games with these people either. But I don't really like DMing. Just to be clear, I've said this before. It's not something I really enjoy. But I put up with it because they all really like it. And so I'm, you know, happy enough to DM for them. But, you know, one of the aspects that I kind of do have and somewhat enjoy is actually kind of having this whole story that I get to control and orchestrate. I mean, that's not something I really love as a player, because I'm more interested in the problem solving stuff, but as a DM, it's pretty much what I've got. And so, you know, like right now, well, before we had kind of the sandbox campaign, and so I was developing little plots and things like that, and we had like the plot with the aboleth in that town that was kind of taking over the town. And now we're running Lost Mines of Phandelver. And that obviously has a plot, you know, with this mystical long lost cave that has recently been found, and you've got goblins involved, and you've got bandits involved, and you've got dwarves and missing dwarves, and you've got a dark elf kind of orchestrating things, and so on and so forth. There's plenty of plot to be had. And yeah, my players here are interested in basically none of it. Not even not interested, but basically, from what I can tell, after every session, any knowledge they had of the plot just gets removed from their brain. And they have no idea what is going on every single week. Like, I've pretty much just explained the plot to them multiple times, just as like a refresher. Of like, hey, okay, so there's this guy, this dwarf, he and his brothers, they found the Wave Echo Cave. He had a map to the cave. He's now gone missing. This black spider individual is responsible. Blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, the next session, a character they're talking to mentions Gundren Rockseeker, and they'll all be like, who's Gundren Rockseeker? And it's just like, I can't... what am I supposed to do with that? What am I supposed to do with that? It's quite painful, really. So anyways, this week they were continuing to explore the dungeon beneath this manor, where all the Red Brand bandits were holding out. And at the end of the last session, you know, they kind of got their shit handed to them by being really stupid and just walking into an ambush. You know, anyone else, you'd almost think they kind of just walked into the ambush deliberately, like they wanted to be ambushed. But no, they're just clueless. So now, you know, after being kind of informed of how they were ambushed and what exactly happened, they retreated and they decided to set an ambush of their own. Quite poorly, I must say. It's just, it's like fucking... if I wasn't such a serious person, I think I'd probably find a lot more humor in it. which is what my mom keeps telling me. Like, they set up this shitty ambush behind a boulder, not realizing that they were kind of, like, exposed on their flanks. And there were multiple, like, routes through this dungeon. So they got ambushed again while setting up their own ambush. And then my nephew, the first thing he does once they get ambushed is he just dives headfirst into this crevice nearby. Without any thought as to how deep it was or what's on the bottom or anything, I dive into the crevice. And of course it's a 20-foot crevice. And again, I'm sorry, but I'm not the kind of DM that's gonna say, like, are you sure? I'm not the kind of DM that's gonna make it suddenly not 20 feet deep because he was stupid enough to dive headfirst into it. And I'm also not the kind of DM to just, like, say that he takes 2 damage or something. You know, just some lowball number. He dove down. I mean, really, he should just be fucking dead. That's what a real DM would do. But I'm not quite that cruel yet. So, you know, he took his 2d6 damage, and he was down at the crevice. And then they kind of just got into a big brawl. And again, like, they're quite overpowered as characters, and I don't think they ever seem to realize... I mean, I think they're starting to get a hold of the thought a little bit. But then, no, later the same session, they completely lost that thought. But anyways, they win the battle without any of them dying. And one of the guys gets away, though, and they start chasing after him, but then they get distracted by some other room that they saw, and they start poking around. And then they end up finding a couple secret doors. And they decide to split the party. Aha. And they asked me, as a DM, like, do people often split the party? And I had to be honest, and I said, well, yeah, I mean, people do. People do split the party fairly often. You know, because people have different ideas of where to go and what to do, and sometimes you want to cover more ground more quickly, or various reasons. You know, I could have said, like... No, you should never split the party. It's a really stupid idea. Don't be dumb. But, you know, they're learning their own mistake. I think everyone needs to learn about splitting the party. It's one thing to be told. And it's another to experience. So they split the party. One went through one, or 2 of them went through one secret door. 2 of them went through another. And, the 2 that went through one of them ended up encountering this, like, crypt area with a bunch of skeletons propped up against sarcophagi. And they stepped in, and all the skeletons, like, snapped to attention with their weapons. And this sort of developed into another issue. I had high hopes, actually, for my nephew. He has played, I'm pretty sure, like, his favorite game ever is Skyrim, right? And Skyrim is a really good example of, like, modern D&D. Because in Skyrim, you basically just beat the shit out of everything. Like, nothing is really that much of a concern for you, especially as you grow more and more powerful. There's no, like, mythical creatures early on that just have, like, unique immunities or are just unstoppable for whatever reason. You know, like, everything can just be beaten the shit out of. Yes, I mean, I'm aware that there are things in Skyrim that will kill you, but that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying here is in regards to skeletons. All of them seem to have this idea in their head that animate skeletons were just unstoppable. Like, they're dead. And they can't be killed again. They're just unstoppable. Like, how do you kill a skeleton? And there was some talk of, like, maybe using fire and, like, sealing them in there and burning them. Which, of course, scientifically wouldn't work. I mean, you wouldn't burn bone to ash without, like, a very strong contained fire directed right at it for a while. But, you know, as far as a game is concerned, sure, fire is as good as anything else. Literally anything. I mean, unless I'm blanking on skeletons in Skyrim, but I'm pretty sure you just beat the shit out of them. They're level 1 in Skyrim. They have 21 health. They can be taken out with a few quick hits by any weapon or spells. Like, literally, if you've played any video game in the last 30, 40 years, skeletons are like the weakest, most basic enemy. Like, I couldn't even really comprehend what they were saying. That skeletons are just like this unstoppable monstrosity. So, instead of just rushing in and beating down the skeletons... And I made these skeletons a little bit stronger than, like, a Skyrim skeleton, but still. They were meant to just be beaten up. But instead of doing that, they decided to sprint across the room past the skeletons to get to a set of double doors on the other side of the room. And so that's what they did. They zigged and zagged past the skeletons. They got to the double doors. They threw them open. And then they barred the doors on the other side so the skeletons could never get to them because, oh god, if a skeleton got to you, you're done. I mean, fucking Goku couldn't handle a skeleton. Insane. And then they proceeded to immediately step onto a pit trap. So that was good. Meanwhile, the other group went through a secret door, and they ended up in the big boss man's quarters. The leader of the bandits, the wizard, Glass Staff. And so, you know, my sister's character, he entered first. And obviously the guy notices his secret door suddenly opening, because no one uses that except for him. And she initially tries to actually bluff and say that she wants to join the bandits. And I felt a little bad because, like, she's actually attempting something other than a stupid, like, ambush or just running in and beating things up or just running past them because they're unstoppable skeletons. So I felt a little bad because she was attempting something good. But at the same time, it's like, what a ridiculous lie. I think I did let her roll a guile just in case. You know, if she rolled like really high or a crit or something, I was like, okay, I will reward your somewhat aspect of creativity. But she did not roll well. And I thought it's kind of lame if he's just like, liar, you are stupid and I will kill you now. So instead, I had the guy that they let get away. Because they got distracted, so they didn't follow after him. He went to inform the leader, of course, that there were intruders butchering all of them. And so he burst into the room with like an injured leg, just as the character who shot him in the leg is standing there talking to the leader. I think that's probably where I actually gave her the role, as like he said, she said, or something like that. But obviously, I even told her, like, this is going to be a very rough chance for you. He's standing there bleeding with an arrow in his leg, and you're holding a bow. Yeah, so she did not roll too well. But they got into combat then, and she made up for it. Let me tell you, because she rolled a crit on her attack, shooting this wizard in the face. And I had him all statted out as like an actual character in Heroes of Adventure. But she rolled a crit, and she pretty much instantly one-shot him in the head. And this is a classic kind of DM moment of you plan out a whole big boss meticulously, and then the players get really lucky and just instantly kill him. And it's always a bit of a bummer as a DM. You want him to really show off his power and have this big epic battle. But almost always the players are going to be quite happy with this result. And really, it was kind of a bummer for them, because had they taken him alive, he had a lot of information for them about the plot. But at the same time, they don't really care about the plot, so it didn't matter too much. Hey, Donnie. So yeah, they were certainly quite pleased that they took care of this horrible wizard before he had a chance to really let loose. And they searched his whole room, and obviously they got a bunch of treasure. They made quite a bit of money out of this. And they also found a letter. They found a letter on his desk. And this started my biggest sort of like shake my fucking head sequence of the whole night. And I will explain. I will explain. I'll even bring up the module here so I can read the whole letter. Okay, so they knew, And they take notes. Keep in mind, these people all take notes on like things that happen and things they hear about. But clearly their notes are pretty shit. They knew, and they looked in their notes, that the guy that they originally rescued in the cave, Sildar, he had told them that he was in this area looking for an associate of his named Yarno Albrecht. He was an associate of his that came here to kind of help establish order in Phandalin, but he went missing, and then so that's why Sildar has come to check out and figure out where he is, but he still hasn't found him. Okay, so Sildar looking for Yarno Albrecht, a wizard that went missing. They found a letter on this wizard's desk, and the letter reads, Lord Albrecht, my spies in Neverwinter tell me that strangers are due to arrive in Phandalin. They could be working for the dwarves. Capture them if you can, kill them if you must, but don't allow them to upset our plans. See that any dwarven maps in their possession are delivered to me with haste. I'm counting on you, Yarno. Don't disappoint me. And then there's a symbol there of a black spider. And I expected when I read all that out, they were like, oh shit, we just killed Yarno Albrecht. He betrayed, Sildar and all. He's been working with he's been running the red brands. He's working with the black spider. That's kind of the reaction I expected, because that's meant to be that's meant to be kind of the revelation there. What I actually got from them, though, was that, oh, this guy was talking to Lord Albrecht. That was their initial reaction, was that this wizard was talking to Lord Albrecht. Which you'd think that means that they interpreted this letter as the guy that they just killed is the black spider, and he signed the letter at the bottom. No, that's not what they thought. As far as I could tell, their initial impression was that this wizard here is just a third party named Glassstaff, and he happened to have this letter that was sent to Lord Albrecht by the Black Spider. And they're like, oh, Lord Albrecht, that's the guy Sildar's looking for. And then I feel like they completely blocked out any part of the message. They only caught two aspects of this whole letter. The name at the top and the symbol at the bottom. But they still don't even care about the Black Spider. The Black Spider may as well not even exist as far as they're concerned. Because it's like some sort of object permanence issue or something. As if there's not a character directly in front of them that they can shoot in the face, they don't care that they exist. So the Black Spider is meaningless to them. And then they just apparently could not see that this wizard that they just killed is Lord Albrecht, because Lord Albrecht went missing. This couldn't be Albrecht. He's missing. I had to break it down. I had to just point blank tell them. And then even after I explained the whole thing to them of that this guy you just killed is Albrecht, they still kept discussing it. And they still couldn't seem to I was like stunned. I couldn't. Eventually they came upon the decision that this guy they just killed was the Black Spider. Again, this was after I told them who he was. It was just, I can't handle that. I just cannot. And again, this harkens back to what I just said earlier of like, you wouldn't have any of this confusion or thought. You wouldn't have any of this story nonsense cluttering up, cluttering up your brain if you were just playing a board game. And it just, as a DM, it's like, if they can't even follow this basic of a plot line, what could I possibly hope to run for them that they would be able to follow? I mean, pretty much the only plot line that they could follow is like, oh, a bunch of ogres kidnapped my daughter. Please rescue my daughter. And then no twists, no turns in that plot. It's literally just a bunch of ogres kidnapped a daughter, and they need to kill all the ogres and rescue the daughter. That's basically it. And it's just like, why would I want to run that? You know? But anyways, they finished up in the dungeon. They did not kill all the red brands. They didn't explore the whole place. They just wanted to get out of there. They were pretty beaten up. And they sold some more of their loot. They went back to the mining company lady to get their reward for killing Glassstaff. And then she also said, well, you know, did you find any correspondence in his quarters? And again, they were kind of confused by the usage of the word correspondence, and they had to ask if she meant if that means letters. So that's the kind of level that we're at here. And then she's like, yeah, and so they just handed over the letter to this lady without any of them even pondering like why she wants this, or if this could be bad to just hand over this. This is not this is not the police or anything like that. Like, what does the head of the local mining consortium want with correspondence between a wizard and the Black Spite? None of that. None of that. Just, here you go. Give us our money, please. And I think, honestly, they probably would have... I think they prefer the outcome where they shot the wizard in the face instantly and killed him, rather than him even trying to explain aspects of the plot. Because, you know, the adventure module does mention the thing that he knows and the things he could tell him about the Black Spider and the Wave Echo Cave and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, they wouldn't have appreciated any of that. Then they did one of the side quests, because I had a character mention to them about, like, the local priestess wants some help with a banshee. Headphones just cut out for some reason. I don't know why that adventure is listed in the book, in the module at all, because it's really just a lame thing. Unless you have really dickish players that are just complete assholes to everybody, just murder hobos, then maybe that would result in something interesting. But otherwise, it's literally just players going to the Banshee, trading in a silver comb, and then getting knowledge about where a spell book is, and then returning and handing in the quest. And they have to travel 50 miles to go to this location, and there's nothing else there. So, yeah, it was quite lame, but they were pleased with it because it was an easy mission that they could do and get paid and kind of rest up. And that's basically where we end. Oh, right. So, at the start of this whole campaign, you know, I gave them a special spell book that they could use called Question for God, and once per session they could use it to ask me anything they want, and I will just answer it, because they need all the help they can get. So they finally decided, they haven't used it in a while, they're like, we should use the Question for God. And so they put their heads together and like, okay, we're going to ask where this hidden cave is. And what's funny is, again, I can't even remember if it was the mining lady or somebody else had mentioned, like, just at the end of this session, like towards the end of the session, about Wave Echo Cave. Because that's obviously the central focus of this whole adventure. This whole plot line is Wave Echo Cave. And a few sessions ago, when they rescued Sildar, I had him explain the whole backstory and history of Wave Echo Cave and kind of what's going on with that and why it's so special and important, blah, blah, blah. And so here I had another character mention Wave Echo Cave. You know, it's a hidden cave. And it was like telling them for the first time. They're like, oh, well, we should find this hidden cave. And so that's what they did, the question for God of where is the hidden cave? And I was like, okay, I guess, whatever. And so I gave the character who asked the question specific, complete knowledge of the entrance to this cave. And so they could go there. I mean, it's not like that big of a deal if they skip some content. The only thing is, like, Wave Echo Cave is a big location. It's the final location. So it could be a little rough for them. But they also remembered then that they wanted to go deal with the orcs nearby. Someone was going to pay them to do that. And there was the goblins at the castle that they didn't finish with. And so I guess it sounded like they were more interested in going towards those locations. But, you know, they know where the cave is now. It's filled with treasure. Yeah, it was a mess. It was just a mess. So I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do after this adventure is over. You know, I had thoughts initially about doing Hot Springs Island, but they wouldn't really appreciate, like, almost any aspect of that. They wouldn't be interested in any of, like, the factions going on, the backstories, the infighting, you know, the relationships between the different factions and the stories. They wouldn't care for any of that. I don't think they'd really care for, like, the cleverness required, because Hot Springs Island is filled with a lot of really dangerous stuff. Like, it is not meant to just be a murder hobo scenario. There's loads of, like, ogres and stuff, multiple factions of ogres that are quite capable. There's salamanders and the Ifrit and stuff. You know, I mean, there's a lot of really dangerous stuff in there. And it's not something that you can just walk in and start fighting everything. So I doubt they'd care that much for the whole adventure. So I don't know. I could bring them back and do more sandbox stuff, but yeah, they didn't seem to react too favorably to the whole Aboleth plotline, so I'd have to go back to just more simple plot lines. But at the same time, like, I can't expect them to initiate any plot line. They have to really be led along. So no matter what, it's going to be pretty simple. And the whole appeal of Sandbox Campaign is that the players can kind of drive the action and storylines. So Sandbox Campaign's not really a good fit for them either. So I don't know, I could just run, like, D&D one-shots, like, over and over, that are just really straightforward. But then for me as a DM, that's really lame. So I don't know what I'll do. It's rough, man. I mean, obviously they all enjoy it. I am absolutely the problem here. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's a thought of maybe one of them taking over as DM and giving it a try, but none of them like to read, which is a big, like, none of them would read a book, like, ever. They really have no interest in, well, Like, if they get a new board game, if they get a board game, they will wait for me to read the rule book and tell them how to play, rather than them ever picking up the rule book themselves. That's sort of where they're at. My mom bought Wingspan because she heard it was a great game, a family game. She wanted to play with like the kids and stuff. She never touched it once because she was really hoping that I would just learn how to play and sit down and teach her. Like, that's where they're at. And I just don't know if a person like that can be a DM. You could probably be a really loose DM if you're running like really just rules light and just kind of like sitting there and everyone's telling a story and you're all just very loose about it and just people say what they want to do and you're just like, yeah, sure, awesome. I mean, that's probably how a lot of kids play, you know, without really diving into players' handbooks and stuff like that. And I'm sure it's all often pretty loose. But I would stay a billion miles away from that game. And they will never, ever, 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 ever play without me involved in some aspect. Like, ever. And they won't play, like, her kids would probably, one of my sister's kids would probably really want to play, and she could DM for them, but she'll never do, like, if I'm not involved, D&D and RPGs do not exist. So, it's rough, man. And this is why I've given up on them in the past. Like, the same sort of stuff. Just like kind of a refusal to learn rules and just like mental blockages that prevent them from learning anything as they keep playing session after session. It's just rough. I don't know. We'll see. Anyways, this stream's been going on long enough. So more, well, we're going to finish up Gloomhaven this week. We're going to finish up Astalon this week. We got more Dragon's Dogma 2 coming. And then probably I'll upload that Dragon's Down stuff just to put it out there. It's only 7 videos, so it won't take too long. Over on the Exploring series, we got a video on Magnus the Red dropping tomorrow. And then a video on SCP-8001. No. Yes. No. Yes. I'm pretty sure. I actually didn't look at the polls. I just assumed. I always assume if I put a DJ Cactus option on there, it wins. Yes. By a landslide. SCP-8001. So that'll be good. And that's it. Alright. My name is Mangg. This has been Hanging with Mangg. I'll see you fine folks next week.